Hey everyone. So like I promised, I'm going to do a longer commentary on the movie Nefarious. I've written some notes down and I've read all your comments, and for the most part, everyone agreed that it was a very creepy movie. Some did say that it was very educational. A couple of people told me that I shouldn't be watching it because of the fact that horror movies were a big part of my life when I was a Satanist, and that I did clarify that it is actually a Christian movie, a Christian thriller, and it is to show how evil the demons are. It's a very educational movie, and that is why I suggested that people watch it, because I know from being in Satanism and from knowing many Satanists that a lot see the demons as benevolent, that they are helpful, that they stand for freedom and knowledge, and that they want to help them advance in their life. And that all they have to do is call upon them in a ritual, and they will help them with whatever they ask. They might do that, but for a price. They certainly don't do it because they like you. Now, the further you get into working with demons, the further you get into darkness. At first, it might seem all about freedom and knowledge, but they lead you into where you don't want to go. They will change you. Now, something about this movie, the psychiatrist asked the inmate, Edward, how his childhood was, and he said short. And that was because the demon started possessing him at a very young age, so he didn't have a life. But I'll get back to that. So in the very beginning, you see a picture moving with the first psychiatrist in his office. Then he goes and fixes it, and then it moves again. He goes and fixes it. He leaves the office, and then he falls out the window. So it's an obvious suicide. And by the picture moving, it's showing us that the demon was present. So basically, the demon didn't want him to be the one in charge of making the decision of whether or not he was insane or sane and fit to stand, the execution. Because you have to be deemed sane in order to be executed. And the psychiatrist was going to say that he was insane. So, according to this demon, he chose the new psychiatrist, and he had been following him, watching him since he was very young, and at the very end, we see that. So, the psychiatrist goes into the prison, and he's greeted by the warden, and he's told that the execution is going to take place at 11 o'clock that night. And he has to evaluate the inmate to see if he's fit to stand to go through with the execution. So another interesting thing is that the demon, through the inmate, says, "Death doesn't scare me because I can't die, because I'm a demon." And then he calls himself a Lord High Priest, Prince. That's another common thing that demons will do. They'll have all these titles for themselves, and they want you to call them, like Prince this or Duke that, and then he calls Satan his master. I don't know if you noticed, but he doesn't call Jesus Christ by his name. He calls him the carpenter. So this is very similar to the movie The Omen, where Damien calls Jesus the Nazarene. And a lot of Satanists, I've noticed, will call Jesus the Nazarene. So the way that the demon was laughing through the inmate was very similar to what I've seen in real life through people that have been possessed. So that evil laughter, that evil smirk, that's very similar. And the demon tells the psychiatrist, before you leave here today, you will have committed 3 murders, and it will happen because I say so. The psychiatrist says, no, you won't do it. And then he says that he was convicted of 6 murders, but many more throughout history. So he was telling him basically that this wasn't his first body that he had possessed. So the demon makes Edward, who is the inmate, do things he doesn't want to do. And then he explains to the psychiatrist, he says, you can't just possess someone, you need a series of yeses. And he says it's a process. And he says he offers a series of temptations, like at 3 years old, he gets them to steal, and then through a grandmother, a gift of a Ouija board, and then he starts having rights over the victim. And then he said that the family couldn't tell the changes that were going on in the child. And then he said that degrees of control was temptation, obsession, infestation, possession, and subjugation. Now if you listen to the exorcists online, they'll explain what all these are and how the demon moves from one to the other. And then at one point, the demon said that we own him. Those of us down below, he said. So yeah, so the first psychiatrist, Dr. Fisher, he'd come to the conclusion that he was insane. And because of that, he had to make him commit suicide because he wants to die. So he told the new psychiatrist, I want to be executed. He says, we no longer need him, the victim, the inmate. And he said, it is time for him to go to hell. So just imagine them saying that about you. They don't need you anymore. It's time for you to go to hell. That they've used you for whatever it is that they've been using you for all these years. They just throw you away and watch and have joy in watching you die and suffer. The psychiatrist says he's an atheist, and then the demon says, you ignorant sack of meat. And then he says, you think your atheism will protect you, which is a very strong point, because a lot of people, they don't believe, they say, I don't believe in God. You know, I don't care what happens to me when I die. But they don't realize that, God exists, whether or not they believe in him. And Satan exists also. And there's only 2 places where we can go, and that's heaven or hell. So someone can be an atheist all they want, but it won't protect them. So the psychiatrist calls a priest to come in, and at first he freaks out. The demon freaks out. He jumps up. But first, the inmate copies Jesus when he says, you would have no power over me if it wasn't given to you from below. So Jesus had said that to Pilate, only he said from above. Because demons love to counterfeit. They love to copy. Then the demon causes the light bulb to explode. And that freaks out the psychiatrist, obviously. But the psychiatrist sounded like Pilate. And then the demon responded just the way Jesus did, only he said from below instead of above. So when the priest walks in the room, the inmate jumps up. And he says, "No, nobody wants you here, priest. Nobody needs you." And the priest says he's never met with him before. The inmate yells the same words as the demon did at the Gadarenes. So when Jesus walked through and saw the demon-possessed man, this is exactly what he said. "What do you want with me, Son of God? Come here to torture me before the appointed time?" So the demon through the inmate said this to the priest. And that's exactly what the possessed person said to Jesus. So the priest says that he's just insane and that he's just there to help him. And of course the demon through the inmate says, "You don't consider demonic possession to be a possibility?" And then the demon sits down relaxed because he knows that the priest is not going to cast him out. Now any priest that truly believes would be able to cast that demon out. And of course he says, "Well, I appreciate you telling me that. I feel much better." And then he starts freaking him out. And he says he asked the priest if he'll be available till the sizzle, which means the electric chair. But a real priest devoted to Jesus Christ would not have ran off the way that priest did in that movie. He would have dealt with him and cast him out and saved that man. And I'm assuming it's because of the movie was probably made by Protestant evangelicals, and they don't believe in the Catholic priesthood and the way they do exorcisms. So that's probably why they made it appear that way. But a true Catholic priest that believes in Jesus Christ and the power of exorcism, they'd be able to cast the demon out. And sad to say, some people do not believe that demons act like that now. It's not true, though. So then the psychiatrist says that the priest confirmed that demons aren't real, and the inmate calls him a poser, and that he is still there. He asks him to prove then that he is a demon. And then the demon asks him then to invite him into his body. He says no, but then says okay. And then when he invites him in, nothing happens. Then the demon says later on that he believes in patience. He didn't need to. He had no reason to possess him at that time. He had to stay in the body he was in for a while. Then the doctor asks to talk to Edward, which is the inmate. Demon allows him to talk. So then Edward says that the demon makes him do bad things. So it was obviously not him that killed the people. It was the demon through him. Then the psychiatrist suggests that he might have dissociative disorder. So that's the same as multiple personality disorder. And then Edward says, "No, I don't have that." And then he says that he can't stop the demon because he owns him. Then he explains that sometimes Nefarious, the demon, leaves him alone to experience pain. And he says that he'll do something bad, and then he'll leave and then he'll get punished, such as he'll be getting beaten or put into solitary confinement. And then the demon likes when that happens. And that's when he asks about his childhood. So basically, he didn't really have a childhood. It was only a short period of time before he was fully possessed by the demon. And then the demon confronts the psychiatrist about his girlfriend and his mother. So basically, he had helped his mother. He had his mother euthanized because she was had a terminal illness and she was in a lot of pain. Now, this is something that really bothers me because right now, I mentioned this before, in Canada, there's a program that they have called MAID, so Medical Assistance in Dying. And it was first created for those that are terminal, but now they want to move it to people that have a mental illness. So you might be suffering with schizophrenia or depression or anxiety, and you can apply for MAID and have the government kill you. And they want to move it to be allowed for youth and mature children, as they call it, without parent permission. So this is horrible. This is so horrible. If someone's having a hard time, they should be helped and loved, not killed. This shows that the value of life is deteriorating. But you see that the demon, that Satan, wants us to do these things. But even the demon says it's murder. And I'll get to another point in a minute. We call it euthanasia or medical assistance in dying. We have all these fancy names for it. But it's helping someone to kill themselves. It's murder. And then he said, ready for round 2. I didn't know this was a fight. And he said, that's why you're losing. And again, that's a powerful statement because a lot of times we don't know that we're in a spiritual battle. It could be happening all around us in our life and we wouldn't even know it. People don't have discernment. The demon tells him all about the mental disorders. There's no way he would have known that, just as Edward. And then he tells the psychiatrist that he brought him there to tell his story, this book that he wrote, that he wants him to publish. And he says that humans are inferior. And then the demon admits that the Creator exists. And that he explains about the rebellion, and that is beyond humans' understanding. And he says he hates the term angel. He explains that God's the enemy, and talks about the will and how Satan, his master, wanted them to be free through self-determination, but how God, by creating them, deserved gratitude, and that he made them slaves. So it's basically a lot of the stuff that Satanists say. This is the same thing that I used to talk to Satanists about. But it's a misunderstanding. It's a twisting of the Bible. But the demon says that there is a heaven and hell. He does confirm that. Says humanity was just a slap in the face. Said Satan knew that if he could make man disobey, that his fate would mirror theirs. So he caused them to lust after sin and impurity, and sin brought humans to Satan and demons, and they began their mission to destroy them. So he said God made humans in his image, but we made them in ours, the demon said. So that meant full of sin, wanting to disobey, wanting to have their own way, and do evil. So things like euthanasia is acceptable. That we could kill our own people, we could kill our own family. We don't see it as much of anything. So it says that their plan is to hurt God, to punish him by destroying what he loves the most as humans, which are humans. And and that we're just a means to an end, basically. So the psychiatrist says that he's done, that he's going to deem him insane. The demon freaks out and says he can't do that he knows he's not insane. So then he gets on to the second murder. So as he's leaving, the demon asks, what is Melody doing today? So Melanie is the psychiatrist's girlfriend. So says he already has someone else and that he's going to break up with her. So the psychiatrist is wondering how he knows this. And then the demon says she thinks she's doing it, which is an abortion, to maintain the relationship as he's not ready. So the girlfriend's gone to kill her baby because she knows that her boyfriend is not ready. And then the demon says she butchered the baby in her belly for nothing, because the psychiatrist is already looking for somebody else. So then he tells him to call her right now to stop the abortion from happening. And then the psychiatrist says, it's complicated. I'm not ready to be a father. So how many people kill their babies in the womb because they are not ready to be a parent? And then we use that as an excuse. So the demon acknowledged that abortion is murder, but many humans don't. And then they call it different names. They don't call it murder. And then the demon had said it's a problem easily solved. Just go in and have a doctor do a procedure, and like a procedure, right? And the baby's torn from the womb. And that's painful. The baby feels it. Like, how could you not know that a baby would not feel their limbs being torn apart? And that's okay. How could people think it's okay? Like, it just is beyond belief to me how somebody could walk into a doctor's office or a clinic and have someone put an instrument into their body and tear apart the baby. Or the late-term abortions. And I'm not even going to describe what that is. You can look that up yourself. But there's doctors that have done things to babies when they're born alive because there was a mistake. It's disgusting. And then the psychiatrist says to the demon, he uses the same thing that people use now, you know? It's her body, she can do whatever she wants. Yes, it's your body, but the baby's body is not yours. When you have an abortion, you're killing another body, another being. There's a soul. As soon as conception begins, there's a soul. And that body's not yours to kill. You know, the government, you know, the media, the Planned Parenthood, you know, friends, family will say that. Oh, you're not ready. It's okay. You can just get rid of it. And then the demon says, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, which is what Aleister Crowley said, which is the main thing. Basically, do what you will. Doesn't matter if you hurt whoever, as long as you do what you want. And the psychiatrist says, who are you to judge me? Again, a common response. Again, then he says, it's my life. I can live it the way I want. And then the demon starts laughing and being happy, because that's what Satan wants us to do. They don't want us to obey God. They don't want us to obey Jesus and live the commandments. Love one another. And of course, that's Satan's plan. And then the demon says, but it's still murder. And then all of creation agrees. So the demon says it's murder. They know. They'll try to get you to do it, but they know it's murder. And then he says that the Creator creates, but they destroy, and they do it through people. And then he explained how in the olden days, like, people would celebrate by tossing infants into flaming bonfires, and then giving it to a statue of the demon Moloch. And then he explains it's the same as abortion today. Babies killed in the womb, and then the remains are thrown into the crematorium flames. And then he said, can you imagine the agony the carpenter, meaning Jesus, feels when we rip a child to pieces inside its own mother's womb? And we should feel agony towards that too. And then he said, can you feel it? Your unborn son is now on our altar. And he knew exactly when the abortion was taking place. And then he said, hell rejoices, James. And then he said, that's two. It is in murder. His mother, and now his unborn child. And then the psychiatrist calls the clinic and finds out that it was done. And then a man walks in and asks the inmate what he wants for his last meal, and the demon lets the inmate speak, and he chooses a burger and an extra thick milkshake and says how important it is to him. And then the demon takes control again, and he says he doesn't want anything, because he wants to cause the inmate pain and disappointment, and it shows that he hates the inmate and he wants to hurt him. And the psychiatrist wonders how the inmate knows so much about his personal life, and he says that he chose him and that he's been watching him for years. The psychiatrist still doesn't get it. So you wonder, like, how many people are you talking to that are actually possessed? The demon says he's been lying and that he's not insane, then says no matter what he says, the psychiatrist won't believe him. And then he says in Latin, his name is Legion, for we are many, and that's the same thing that the demon told Jesus. And demons love to use Latin because that's the language of the church. And then at one point, the psychiatrist was saying that good and evil are societal constructs. And then the psychiatrist says that the demon side's not doing so well. The demon laughs and said, do you really believe that? And then the psychiatrist says a bunch of things that are kind of silly, like we've never been freer, and that we're working to eliminate racism, literacy is an all-time high, people love who they want, gender inequality. But that's, Satan wants people to love whoever they want because the way he meant it, like homosexual relationships. And that's against God. So of course Satan would want that. And he's going on about literacy. Yeah, that's great, but people are killing babies. And, another thing about the abortion, he calls it an elective termination. And the demon laughed. And of course that's easier to say than murder. But that's what doctors will use. They'll say it's an elective termination. Sounds better. And they'll say it to the woman too, because they're not going to tell the woman that she's going to murder her baby. They'll say whatever they can to encourage the woman to do it. He says now that there's evil everywhere and no one cares. And the psychiatrist says he doesn't agree. He says desensitize people They desensitize people through movies and the TV and the media, which is true. We can watch a movie now and it's just like people are killing each other and it doesn't faze us. Like horror movies back in the 20s, you compare that to movies out now like Saw and Would You Rather, things like that, like where it's like gore and torture. People sit through that and just let it hurt their soul and their mind. And then he said many more people are ending up in hell than in heaven. That's what the demon says. And then there's a noise, and the demon says they're testing the generator of the electric chair. Psychiatrist said he thought that they only did lethal injection now. And then the demon explains that they still do the chair if the inmate requests it. And he says that he requested it because it's his last gift to Edward, because he wants him to suffer. I mean, that's cruel. That is horrible. Because, of course, the demon's going to leave the body and let the poor man suffer that torture. And then he lets Edward talk again for a couple of minutes. And then the demon comes in and says he broke one of their rules, and then he breaks his finger. And then he fixes it. And then the demon tells the psychiatrist what he wants him to do in regards to the book. Demon says it's already written. Psychiatrist is like, what do you mean? And it says that the book will be a testimony to him and Satan, and it will do for him what the Bible did for Jesus. But again, he calls him the carpenter. He says the book will be a worldwide phenomena, as it will tell the world what they want to hear. And that's another thing. People want to hear they can do whatever they want, and then it's okay. And Satan, that's what Satan wants. Love whoever you want, have sex with whoever you want. Doesn't matter if you kill your baby. Doesn't matter if you cheat, lie, steal. Doesn't matter. As long as you don't obey God and follow him. He says that Jesus was their biggest threat, but that man still wants to be his own God, which is true. And that's the main goal of the occult. And, that man wants to live for himself. It's true. And then the psychiatrist said something like, why would God allow you to publish a book? And he says he has to because he gave man free will. And then the guards come, and then the guard came and said the warden wants to see him, and then he takes him up to the inmate's room, and that's when he sees the book about his life. So the demon basically kept a book about the psychiatrist's life, like pictures of him as a child and everything. And then he sees the book that's already written that he wants him to publish. And then he ends up trying to strangle him. He makes him really angry. And then he wanted to make sure that he signed saying that he was competent to be executed. And as I'm watching this, and then they're getting him ready to be executed, and I'm thinking, humans, we kill each other in the most horrible of ways. Animals, will kill other animals for food, to survive, and to feed their young. We kill our babies. We kill our elderly. We kill our sick. I've never believed in the death penalty. you know, someone kills somebody, it's not right to kill somebody in return. So anyway, the man goes in to get his head shaved for the chair. It's just, the whole time you see, the man was possessed at a young age. He didn't have control of his mind or body. And he killed these people, and now he's going to suffer for it. The demon's just going to leave and obviously go on to something else. So then the demon leaves Edward alone for a while, and he's crying. And then he asks the guard about his last meal, and the guard says he didn't want one. And he says he didn't say that because obviously the demon came back and he said that. And because the demon made sure to make sure, that he would suffer without a last meal and took his last pleasure away from him. And that's sad. That's horrible. And the demon laughs as the warden reads him the warrant, sentencing him to death by electric chair. And the psychiatrist sits in the booth where people watch a person die, and he is thanked by a cop for condemning the inmate. Inmate is brought to the electrocution room, and he cries in fear. Of course, because the demon left him alone. Then he's put in the chair and then jumps up and yells at the window at the psychiatrist, "Why are you doing this to me? Tell them the truth. Tell them I didn't do it." Meaning he didn't kill the people. It was the demon that did it. And they put water on his head, and they do what they have to do. And then they ask the inmate if he has any final words, and he says, he asks the doctor if he'll accept his master's offer, meaning Satan, and then the doctor shakes his head, and he speaks in Latin again. So, and then again, when they do the electricity, he doesn't die right away. And of course, the demon had told the psychiatrist that would happen. Anything to make this person suffer even more. And then at the very end, the demon possesses the psychiatrist and tries to make him kill himself. But the trigger wouldn't go off. So then 1 year later, the psychiatrist is being interviewed on TV by a host played by Glenn Beck because of the book that he had published. And he explained what happened with the demon, and he said that he didn't believe it was a demon. Beck asked if he believed him now, and he said yes, because for a brief time he had been possessed himself. So a lot of times you don't realize what's going on. You don't believe until you experience it. So you can say that demon possession isn't true, or, the demons wouldn't do a certain thing unless you experienced it yourself. And then he said that the entity was so malevolent, so evil, and so powerful, and that words couldn't describe it. So just try to think about that for a minute. He said the demon wanted him dead for not doing what he wanted. So then he said that he rewrote the book. That wasn't the same book. He rewrote it to warn people, but admits that he's not really a believer. Beck said that he'll get there. That he's in a position to tell the difference between mental illness and possession, as he's a psychiatrist. Then they talk about the demon's last words, which he said in Latin, but it meant you've been weighed in the balance and found wanting. And then it says the demon was talking about all of us. It says there's a battle between good and evil, and that we're all participants, willing or not. And then when he leaves the TV studio, he sees a woman going through a garbage bin. He gives her some money. And then she says, "Hello, James, miss me?" And it was the demon. So the demon just went into another woman, went into another person. He doesn't care about the person that got electrocuted. They don't care about us. Yeah, the movie was creepy. But it showed, what Satan tries to do to humanity. He wants to hurt God and tries to use us to do so. By hurting us, he's hurting God. And he loves abortion. He loves the killing of babies, innocent little babies. He likes euthanasia, the killing of people that are sick, are old, that are suffering. He likes the death penalty. People have died, even innocent people have died through the death penalty, but even if they're guilty, it's still murder. Someone might have done something horrible to somebody, which Satan loves, but then he also loves to watch that person get killed. What Satan would hate was for people to show love to that person. Whenever we show love and kindness, gentleness to a person, Satan hates it. So to those who worship Satan, if you haven't watched the movie, I do think you should watch it. And really ask yourself, is this who I want to worship? Is this who I want to follow into eternity? Like, do you agree with abortion? Do you agree with euthanasia? Do you agree with killing innocent lives? Really, really think about it. And yes, it was just a movie, but I'm telling you, I have seen and experienced these things, and it's very similar. It's worse than what I've seen, and I'm grateful that I haven't seen that. But listen, like, the exorcists will say what they see. I've heard Satanists tell me that demons have thrown them against the wall or scratched them at nighttime and their body's full of scratches and cuts. They didn't know why they did that. They don't care about people, whether you worship them or not. They'll use you and throw you away and laugh while they're doing it. Of course, they have to act nice in the beginning and make promises to help you with this or that, or give you something that you want. But like that demon said, all it takes is a little something to open the door, and you go further and further. I don't want that for you. I saw what they were doing to me. I felt the death around me and the anxiety. I didn't like what I was becoming. How easy it was to think, oh, I should curse this person just because they annoyed me. And Jesus has changed so much. He's transformed me so that now if someone annoys me, I pray for them. Jesus will take, an angry heart, an angry, hurting person, and make them joyful and loving with so much peace. He'll make you, he'll take this selfish person and they'll become selfless. It doesn't happen overnight. It can. But with most people, it takes time, but you should see the transformation. I'm glad I'm not that person anymore. And who knows what that could have led to 5-10 years down the road. The more you get darker and darker and deeper, please consider what I'm saying. Lord God, I pray for all of those who are watching right now. I pray for those who watch the movie, that they may see the evil that Satan has put into the world, and how he hates human beings and will just use them if they give him an opening. How he'll target children and take their life. You said that he comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and that's exactly what he does. He's shown that over and over again. You said he prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for who he will devour, and yes, that's true. Lord, touch the hearts of those that think it's a cool thing to follow that being. Those that are hurting, that found the false strength in that belief system. Those that have been hurt by the people in their lives. And those that have lost hope. Those that want to be loved, but use the dark as a shield because they have been abused or hurt. I pray for those that have a mental illness, suffer from depression and anxiety or schizophrenia. I pray for those who are suffering, who may be contemplating euthanasia, but they can find hope and life in you and change their mind. I pray for those who may be considering an abortion, but that they'll choose life, whether to raise that child on their own or give it up for adoption so another loving couple can raise it. I pray for those that are on death row, that are facing death, no matter what crimes they may have committed, that you will be with them and bring them to you. Lord, I pray for our governments, our society. I pray for all of us, that we can, instead of listening to the TV and movies and music and thinking that's the way that we should behave, that we turn to your word and that we see how your son lived and that we desire to be like him and listen to his commandments by loving you above all else and loving one another as ourselves. Lord, you are life and you love us. You died for us. No matter what we might have done, we can be forgiven because you took our punishment. Lord, I love you. Thank you for everything you've done for me. Thank you for the changes you made in my life. I love you. Thank you for saving me. Lord, knock on the hearts of those who don't believe in you yet. Let them know that you love them and that there is hope. I pray in the name of Jesus, in the Father, Spirit, amen. I love you guys. There is hope, and that's in Jesus Christ. God bless you. Amen.